Konnichi, welcome, friends, to Chez Garbage, the only restaurant with Teal Fellowship funding that serves all the tastiest trash the anime industry can cook up. I built this place on the belief that every piece of trash is someone's treasure unless it's garbage. And in keeping with that philosophy, we score the merits of each dish we serve here on a proprietary rating scale that is highly intuitive and needs no explanation, and I swear to Haruhi I will cut the next motherfucker who asks for one. If this is your first night with us, you picked a good one, because Spring's menu features a beautifully balanced mix of so bad it's goodness, horny nonsense, isekai slop for him and her, and even a little something something for the shonen edgelords. This is the hottest trash of spring 2026, brought to you by Rosetta Stone. Have you always wanted to visit Japan? Don't do it now. Trust me, I just got out of there, and Tokyo is a 2,000 square kilometer concrete heat sink built on a swamp. Instead, you should be using this summer to study, so by the time you do get there, your Nihongo will be nice and Jozu. Rosetta Stone is an all-in-one immersive language learning app designed to make that studying as natural and intuitive as possible by emulating the way you learned this language as a child, using real-world scenarios to prepare you for real-world conversations with bite-sized lessons that fit your real-world schedule. All the while, you'll be guided by real native Japanese voices with real-time feedback from Rosetta Stone's true accent voice recognition technology to help you hone your pronunciation and build your conversational confidence, which you are gonna need for all the weird-ass anime merch we both know you're gonna buy. If you're ready to stop saying nantoka nare about your Japanese learning ambitions and start saying keikaku dori, then click the link in the doobly-doo or scan the QR code on screen for an exclusive deal on not just Japanese, but all 25 Rosetta Stone languages, and start preparing for your language learning journey today. As always, the first items on our menu are some light, refreshing Trashpetizers, two delightfully different flavors of Huge Loser inexplicably dating the hottest girl in school. Or rather, the hottest girls, plural, and the second hottest one, respectively. Gals Can't Be Kind to Otaku infuses the bread and butter seinen rom-com formula with distinctly flowery notes of shoujo, the otaku in question bonding with his class's resident part-time model over a shared love of Walmart Precure, while her best friend, who doesn't really watch that much anime, kinda just thinks the both of them are adorable. I Made Friends with the Second Prettiest Girl in My Class, meanwhile, follows a pair of gamer trash goblins after my own heart as they bond over her secret love of violent video games and even more violenter B-movies. Not to say the gals don't also enjoy those from time to time. But it is kind of neat to see one of these things focused on the more feminine aspects of fandom, while still working toward giving Homeboy his three-way, and while Second Prettiest Girl's What If Your Best Bro Was a Smokin' Hot Babe wish fulfillment is a little more standard, the realism with which that friendship is written and the depth of the characters involved really elevates it. I give it 4 baskets of our fluffiest garlic bread, while Gal Taku gets 4 more of our sweetest sweet rolls. So pick your poison and get ready to dive into our patented Naro Slop Trough, is what I would say if there was enough new slop this season to stop you from breaking your neck in there. Unfortunately, all we got's 2 isekai, 2 villain S-dealies, and somehow not a single one of those f***ing things, which does at least mean the average quality is pretty high. And for my money, the cream of that slop crop has gotta be The Strongest Job Is Apparently Not a Hero or a Sage, but an Appraiser provisional. Look, man, I'm as surprised as you are. The title alone is the kind of thing that makes you wish you could read it 2 times speed, and nothing about the visuals suggests you'd be missing anything other than a bog standard isekai by watching it that way. Not that I ever would, no matter how bog standard the isekai gets. I don't roll that way, but I understand some people do. But that's because what you can't see without actually sitting down to watch the show is how fucking funny it is.
おおすごいガッチガチのモリモリだこの俺の努力と根性の結晶の価値がかっこいいよお兄さんいや兄貴
You can sample the great voice acting, the hilarious sound design and storyboards, and even some of the kooky characters' more obvious charm points, but the impeccable comedic rhythm that runs through each episode from beginning to end is what really elevates the entire work, getting huge laughs out of the dumbest running gags, from the elf whose shirt won't stay buttoned up, to the proud wolfman warrior who won't admit he craves chin scritchies, to the merchant who can literally smell the money on you, and it turns him on. On that note, as low budget as the default art style can look, the show actually can deliver some pretty solid fan service when it wants to. Plus, it really gets some mileage out of Protag's seducing older women skill that he's not sure why he has, and frankly, it scares him a little, as do a lot of the random little things that the gods have decided to bless him with without asking him first. Also, worth noting, there is a lot more to that elf than just the things that keep popping out of her shirt, such as a deep-seated neurosis about her inability to make friends, which contrasts beautifully with her totally unearned level of arrogance. Just fantastic character work there, and across the board in the whole show. It is a very funny cast. On paper, strongest job is by the numbers validation slop, but it's more than the sum of those parts. Unfortunately, my ridiculous reincarnation turned out to be a little bit less. The concept of a typical isekai loser picking the least typical isekai premises he can imagine to skip the 10,000-year-long wait lines to be reborn as a hero or demon king or other popular options is comic gold, ripe with potential for brilliant parody, be he reborn as a rib, a vegetable, the voice in the hero's head that tells him he's leveled up, or the right door to the demon king's throne room. And the choice to depict each world with its own unique animation style, from traditional to claymation to paper puppetry, is straight up inspired. If you are an animation nerd of any kind, this show is required viewing.
恋人と結ばれ、ハッピーエンドを迎えられたはずなのになぜ戻ってきたのです。
勇者は最強の武具。勇者以外所有できない呪い、両方の因果で俺を装備しようとした落刀者が命を落としてしまったのです。
今までありが
落刀者
But unfortunately, all of those cool ideas end up being delivered by the protagonist basically just showing the goddess his isekai vacation slides. Look, I'm sure the format of narration with color commentary worked perfectly well when this thing was a web novel. The vaguely psychotic goddess is certainly an entertaining enough character to carry those interactions, but in a more active, present tense medium like animation, I really want to see that crazy, funny stuff happening instead of just being told that it happened after the fact. Don't get me wrong, it still had me laughing, and I do still think it's required viewing for animation nerds. And for isekai nerds, it delivers pitch-perfect parodies of Lonely Slop, Validation Slop, and Number Slop alike. It's just hard to shake the feeling it could be doing a little better. The heroine of Always a Cat should be grateful that she'll never feel that way about her new fiancé. Mimi is the former heiress to a magic martial arts dynasty who finds herself in sudden need of a husband after her parents finally pop out a little brother with greater legal claim to their dojo/dukedom. So she moves in with her best friend at a neighboring kingdom's obligatory rich kid high school, just in time to accidentally be mistaken for that friend by her fiancé, the Crown Prince, when it's time for his obligatory she's been framed for bullying by some drill-haired Ojo-sama, and for some reason I believe her scene. However, it turns out he was only pretending to believe Miss Drillhair to give his fiancée an excuse to break up with him and marry his brother who actually loves her, and simultaneously killing a second bird with that same stone, enacting an elaborate, inciting incident of a villainess anime-themed sting operation on Ojo-sama and her criminal father, which Mimi ends up getting caught up in, but she can kick all their asses, so it's fine. And it turns out the Crown Prince has a watching goons get beat up fetish, so that's her husband hunting problem solved too. The bird to stone ratio in this anime is seriously impressive. Not quite impressive enough for the number slot bucket, but thankfully, its massively charming cast of characters do make for some primo lonely slop. And it finds itself in good company in that bucket, next to Observation Log of My Fiancé Who Calls Herself a Villainess. A clever little twist on the reborn in an otome game genre that places us, as the title suggests, in the fancy leather shoes of the prince to whom the villainess is betrothed, rather than the woman herself, seeing from the perspective of a fantasy world inhabitant just how crazy someone would look if they suddenly came at you telling you your life is a video game when you don't even know what a video game is. Not that Cecil particularly minds. Being a rich genius and all, there is very little in this world that can surprise or challenge him, so Bertia, with her odd ambitions of achieving world-class villainy and even odder ability to predict the future with frightening accuracy, proves an entertaining distraction that swiftly evolves into full-blown obsession. But there's a problem there. While she does love him too, it's very much in a if you love them, let them go sort of way, hence why she's so eager to play the perfect villainess and tee him up for his happy ending with his destined maiden. The reason why she's so eager does form the backbone of an overarching mystery that does kinda set the show apart from the rest of the genre pack, although it does still end up feeling like a Baccarina clone minus the bisexual harem, which obviously is a huge downgrade. However, the blend of comedy and drama and the eccentricity of the supporting cast are close enough to Baccarina that I'm not really complaining. It's a good-ass season for fantasy girl trash. And even though we are leaving the slop trough now, we're not quite done with it, because the warrior princess and barbaric king drop straight up schlong in episode 1. Like, literally straight up. Well, it does seem to curve a little bit to the side, but close enough. That schlong comes attached to the titular king, who spends a good amount of time with his shirt off, too. As does the titular princess, to be fair, along with many other female members of the cast, sometimes involving tentacles. The original manga did run in a shonen magazine, so I may have slightly oversold its girl trashiness. But the story is clearly playing with noble savage tropes straight out of a pulp bodice ripper romance, so it's not hard to see how it earned a sizable female fan base as well. Playing with those tropes doesn't mean it has to play them straight, though, and Seraphina, the warrior princess, quickly finds that any fears she may have had of her bodice being ripped after the king claimed her as a prize from the battlefield to be greatly exaggerated and maybe even a little racist. Vior may have taken her as a prisoner of war, but he's too much of a gentleman to force her to marry him, and while his culture may be a little looser with what it lets hang out there, in a lot of ways she finds their social structure and views on gender roles to be liberating, at least for a woman who's not so interested in tea parties, political marriages, and all that other stuff from those last two anime. Don't get me wrong, this show is far from woke and as meaty as its man service can be. The primary target audience is still clearly Spike Spiegel type dudes.
I love the kind of woman that can kick my ass.
But it does have a certain social awareness about it that serves to both enrich its world building and create a romantic storyline that folk from all genders and orientations can take some not too guilty pleasure in. Combine that with some seriously kick-ass battle scenes, and you've got a show that easily earns 3 toasty dumpsters full of fur-lined bikinis and dragon-skin banana hammocks. If kick-ass battles are all you want, though, then buddy, you are in luck, because Petals of Reincarnation is the edgiest JoJo's Bizarre Adventure like this side of the big order. Does it have a coherent plot? Not as such, but what it does have is loads of convoluted lore, a kick-ass power system, and literally Hitler.
僕はヒトラー
who teams up with literally Pol Pot to make literally Erwin Schrödinger's persona tremble with fear by using Pol Pot's Walmart purple haze powers to eliminate every possible parallel timeline where Schrödinger doesn't die, thus rendering his OP stand power useless, which is just the prelude to the real fight against teleporting waifu Albert Einstein and Sir Isaac Newton, the apple-headed pervert, at the end of which we find out that Hitler and Pol Pot were actually super chill guys all along. I should probably clarify. Literally Hitler isn't literally Hitler, but rather an ambiguously gendered reincarnation who inherited his talent for building surveillance states in the form of a swastika Kekkei Genkai that lets them share their vision with anyone also wearing a swastika, except that Germany is a pretty big market for anime these days, so instead of a swastika, it's this thing. But Adolf Daimler is ultimately just one of many such returners who've all regained the powers and sometimes personalities of their past lives by slitting their throats with magic knives, and now must fight each other over whether they should be fighting each other for fun or fighting each other for world peace. And the main guy out of those is a reincarnation of a thief guy with the power to steal powers, who isn't really all that interesting, and neither is that power. So yeah, mainly you watch this for all the kooky edgelord bullshit happening around him, which thankfully there is quite a lot of. At least 3 times an episode, you are going to be saying, wait, what the f***? And I mean that as the highest compliment. I give it 4 flaming dumpsters of blood and razor blades. But now it's time to move on from the edgy anime to the ecchi anime, of which we've got a whole buffet for your pleasure this spring. If you're watching this on Patreon, otherwise a lot of them had to be cut from the YouTube. I mean, we're in a restaurant. Before we can dive into that, though, I gotta tell you what won't be on the menu: Yoa Yoa Sensei. Now, don't get me wrong, the show does have an immensely charming art style. The wide variety of patterns and styles very comfortably place its panty shots in B tier, and its nipples are there. There are nipples in this anime. But that's pretty much all it's got going for it. I have never felt this bored staring at tits this huge. The problem mainly lies with the titular tit bearer herself, Hiyori Hiwamura, aka Koa Koa Sensei, a shy, clumsy, soft-spoken young teacher with clothes made of tissue paper, whose class all thinks she's terrifying because, I guess when she gets all muttery and quiet and stuff, she kind of could maybe seem like the ghost out of The Ring or The Grudge or whatever to someone who's never actually seen those movies and also has severe brain damage, which, to be fair, if all these characters are tripping and falling on their heads this often off-screen when there aren't massive titties around to catch them, I suppose could explain it. Me, though, I'm just sitting here scratching my thoroughly untraumatized head through all these jokes about, like, she mumbled something, so half the class is like, oh no, she's cursing us! Or someone's really scared of her for stuttering, and then she trips and hits Protag boobs first, and all her clothes explode. The only dread I feel coming from the implication that there might actually be a real human being out there who needs 20 seconds of verbal exposition to figure out how the teacher ended up with a bloody finger while holding a plushie with popped stitches. Gosh, I wonder what could have happened there. Some kind of dark ritual? It's a mystery. The closest thing the show has to a coherent setup and punchline is the audience insert cardboard cutouts Ara Ara One-sama taking a shine to Sensei for being even more baby than her baby brother, which is funny for like 4 seconds or so, but then the rest of the characters are just Mineta but a girl, or a violent, super strong tsundere.
How original.
Who's also a gyaru.
Daring today, aren't we?
Look, I built this restaurant with my bare hands by stabbing the hobo who used to live in this alley to death so that I could serve a higher class of trash. And if you want garbage like this, I'm sure they'd be happy to have you at Slopplebee's. And I know the counter argument to all this is just shut up and enjoy the anime, titty man. But there are hundreds of websites out there where I could also be doing that, plus enjoying some other bits with better jokes and characters even. One such website is oceanvale.com, where you'll find every simulcast too cultured for more cowardly streaming sites, like the latest season of I Want You to Show Me Your Panties with a Disgusted Face. Yes, that's a real anime. And so is Do You Like Big Girls, a harem series in which the harem is an entire college volleyball team that the short stack protag ends up dorm managing for as a favor to his sister. And yes, I know what you're wondering, he does break Rule D by episode 5. But you can hear more about that and a few of Ocean Vale's other series in the Patreon exclusive cut of this menu. Now, occasionally, Ocean Vale will also score less horny fare, like Ichijoma Mankitsu Garashi. Though, please do note, less horny is very much a relative term here. One of the cute girls who does cute manga cafe things in this thing is a live streamer who's extremely sensitive to cold, but only on the top half of her body. And the rich mom of the rich girl, whose gimmick is how rich she is, has a massive collection of erotic manga, which, by an astounding coincidence, is also the type of manga that this particular anime was based on, though if you find the adaptation to be erotic, your eyesight is probably worse than mine. The show's approach to panty shots is very much quantity over quality, dipping below even the low-budget D-tier ecchi granny panty zone into straight-up diaper territory at points. And it's also not the best moe comedy out there. It's not the worst. The characters do have some fun gimmick tropes, and the setting of a manga cafe that's also a fancy girls' school dorm room is creative, at least. I like the jokes about how rich the rich girl and her rich mom are, and how they just do like absurd things with all their money because they're completely disconnected from reality. That's funny, but for the most part, the tropes are kind of all there is to any of the characters, and they wear thin real fast. Unlike those granny panties, which wear disturbingly thick, so much so I'm giving it a whole dumpster of them. You'll also, unfortunately, find more than a few of those in Classroom of a Black Cat and a Witch, and while they do at least stay above the diaper line, it is still very much a mediocre mid-budget ecchi comedy. Yet I can't help loving it for the simple reason that it feels like a mediocre mid-budget ecchi comedy from when I was but a lad. A time when the girls had pink twin tails, the boys had actual personalities, the magic systems were made up in a drunken weekend bender, and you could scarcely tell the jokes from the author's barely disguised fetishes. Is Yosuke Kaneda actually into girls tongue-kissing cats on the ass because Frog Prince type magic works better as a suppository? Probably not, since we never actually see her do it on screen, but you can never be sure. Which means you can also never be sure when the one girl has thighs that could pop my head like a watermelon, or the girl who gets real big accidentally and like crushes some people, or gets her torso stuck in a hole in the wall, uh-oh, stepbro style. Probably he thought it was funny and it gave him a boner, but since you can never know for sure, you have no choice but to simply focus on the funny, let the horny wash over you as it should, and just enjoy the thing without tweeting about it. It was a simpler time, a better time. But that's only part of why I'm giving it a panty pass, because it also delivers those goods like the good old days with simple pratfalls for the sole benefit of the camera that don't have to bend the laws of physics just to get a dude between two boobs every single time someone falls over. In this show, a girl can simply fall on her face after jumping off the roof on a broom in an attempt to learn flying magic, flash her ass to the sky, and proceed from there into classic man fall down, get hurt comedy instead of falling into yet another softcore groping sesh. And what's more, in a stroke of legitimate writing genius, Spica Virgo's ability to survive these gag manga levels of physical trauma is eventually revealed to be her special, unique, chosen one magic power she didn't even know she had.
汝が持っている力、再生魔法だ。 傷の回復が異様に早いと感じたことはないか。キスだ。
恋人以外の唇にキスは。
誰が唇にすると言った。キスするのは尻の穴だ。
Which she must then orally apply to the talking cat's anus once per day in order to turn him back into her hot teacher that she used to have a crush on before experiencing that, and also his personality. So, you know, if you think Coco suffered to learn magic, think again. Personality is something this show has in abundance, by the way, spread across a fairly large cast of characters, and that's the real appeal of Classroom of a Black Cat and a Witch. It's a big, zany ensemble comedy where basically everyone is certifiably insane, and most of them also want to f*** each other. Welcome back, Ranma Half, is what I'd say if Ranma wasn't already back, but it's nice to have more anime that also clearly understand what made the forebearers of Ecchi so entertaining, instead of just being like, titty, 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 give us money, please. I'm giving this one 4 flaming dumpsters of granny panties. But if comfort food were all you wanted, you'd be eating at Slopplebee's right now. You come to Chez Garbage for our gourmet delicacies, and Kanan the gourmet herself wouldn't turn up that cute little nose at Mistress Kanan is devilishly easy. You can probably see some of the reasons for this recommendation already. In fact, there are 2 massively good reasons staring you in the face right now. But behind those lurks a heart that's just as huge. Sure, Kyogi-kun, the boy that Kanan accidentally ends up dating after unsuccessfully trying to eat his delicious-looking soul, has some very relatable thoughts that he's thoroughly unashamed of sharing with his girlfriend. But that soul only looks so delicious because it's also so pure. Sure, Kyogi wants to smell it. He wants to drown in it. He wants to do a lot of things with it. His answer to "Are you horny?" is always yes and. But more than anything, he wants to love his new girlfriend with everything he has. Hold her hand, cuddle on the Ferris wheel, and bask in how gosh darn adorable she is. Which, when you combine that design and this animation quality with Aoi Koga doing her very best Bakaguya, is very adorable indeed. And from her ethically slutty succubus maid Ami, who embodies the spirit of the late Shinzo Abe by following the kids around and trying to make them when she's not busy f***ing their teacher, to Jean, the airheaded saint who will do literally anything for food, to Kyogi's earnest childhood friend Nadeshiko, she is far from the only adorable one here. Heck, Kyogi's pretty darn cute in his own right. We're talking nothing less than wall-to-wall moe in this show, buoyed immensely by the goofy, expressive animation style, but it's underpinned as well by some sharp-witted writing that knows both how to play the hits just the way you want to hear them, and how to put a fresh spin on the staler material of the ecchi comedy genre. Like, sure, Kanan does eventually fall into a love triangle with that childhood friend, but not in the way you're thinking.
気に入ったわ。下等生物なでこ。
下等生物？この気持ちは一体。
One pair of pants later.
これで先輩に引きずり回されたい。
All this combines to make Mistress Kanan a truly rarefied treat. An unapologetic sex comedy whose earnestness toward love and lust alike makes it feel undeniably wholesome. An impossible paradox, some might scoff, but any man of culture who's enjoyed Nagatoro-san knows how well those 2 contrasting flavors can complement each other. I have no choice but to award this exquisite dish and the anime with her name on it 5 golden dumpsters full of those Golden Week bikinis. Speaking of, I should probably mention the klutzy class monitor and girl with the short skirt featured an actual Golden Week bikini recently on a different Nadeshiko, funny enough. Sadly, the rest of the show just ain't quite trashy enough for this joint, but for beach episode connoisseurs, that one is worth seeking out as a little treat. On that note though, before you go, you ought to be a little bad and treat yourself to some some dessert. Or a lot bad. Perhaps even that finest of trashy delights. Something so bad it's good? Well, we got not one, but two such treats in store for you tonight. The best mystery fiction has a firm rooting in logic, creating a compact with its audience that they will have a fair shot at cracking the case before the characters even do, if only they can pay close enough attention and use their brains effectively. Killed Again, Mr. Detective is absolutely not one of those.
じゃなくて、この状況でどうやってここを立ち去るって言うんだ。
プライベート空港からここまでの道は全部買い取ったの。シャルの道だから好きに通るし、邪魔もさせない。誰にも。
But it is kinda awesome anyway.
Sorry, 遊ばせ。殴るなら腕力よりも財力。お金持ちでごめんなさいね。
Is it fair to lump such clearly deliberate camp in with genuine so bad it's goodness? I don't know. I'm a chef, not a philosopher. All I know is it tastes about the same, and ain't no one watching this mystery anime for the satisfaction of a good mystery. Not that you should ever expect tight logical writing from a show whose main character can come back from the dead, but like, even if you accept that and try to run with the story's internal logic, the key to solving the first case ends up being some unrelated YouTuber who sent his cat to roam around the cruise ship with a GoPro collar on, and it just happened to record the entire murder, plus the conversation leading up to it that implicated Japan's 5th largest candy company in the world's least cost-efficient pot smuggling operation.
ダメだ、そこは離れろ。
師匠、バルーンの中にこんな緑の綿がたくさん。
このクルーズ船の企画もサーカス団も密輸のために綿の屋製菓が仕組んだものだったんですね。
You don't watch this one for its Machiavellian schemes or genius detective work. You watch it to find out how much more insane the next case can possibly be than the last one, and to see what kind of outfit, or lack thereof, the girls will be wearing next. In particular, Lilitia, Sakuya's waifu Watson, who's been praised by fans the internet over as literally the only thing I'm still watching this garbage for. I give it 3 giant clown balloons full of weed that are on fire because an entire airplane with the main character's dad on it crashed onto the cruise ship that they're on in the middle of the ocean. On the subject of cute girls and ridiculous nonsense, though, it's not every day that the anime world welcomes in a new IP from Noriyasu Agematsu, the creator and composer of Symphogear. So naturally, Ghost Concert Missing Songs had many fans hyped for it from the jump, but it was a different aspect of the show's pedigree that made me excited. Masato Jinbo, a talented enough director when he's working with other people's material, like Heya Camp and the quintessential Quintuplets movie, but when you let him pen his own screenplays, he gives you crap like Chaos Child, The Legend of Mana anime, and Super H Arrows. But this ain't just any old butchered adaptation we're talking about here. It's the original anime side of a full-blown multimedia project. And the last time he wrote and directed one of those, we got Shironeko Project Zero Chronicle, the most deviant art anime of all time. Suffice to say, I was beyond hyped to see what he'd cook up working on something as out there as a battle musical, and Ghost Concert did not disappoint with how disappointing it ended up being. The musical numbers are still Agematsu, if not his best work, so they are plenty listenable, but in the context of the show, they're the primary means by which protag Chan Seria, who can channel the ghosts of historical figures Shaman King style to use their powers in battle, recruits new spirits to her spirit squad. So, like, imagine if in Pokemon, instead of busting out the combination canned animation catchphrase when it's time to collect the monster of the week, Ash started singing extensive rock opera duets with Primeape about his bottled up anger and how nice the hat looks on him and stuff like that. Only instead of a prime ape, it's guys like Nikola Tesla, and it happens pretty much every episode. Not only that, but the music videos that go with those numbers depict fights and other scenes that often aren't actually part of the story, but sometimes they are, which gets extra confusing because the show's ratio of moe slice of life bullshit to action is like 3-to-1, which leaves approximately 2.5 total minutes per episode to establish what all the other characters can do with their powers, why they're doing what they do, why they're fighting this week's evil ghost of the week, and what's going on with the overarching war for territory in the spirit world before the singing starts and we don't even know what's real or not anymore. And if you think that's confusing, all of this stuff about exorcists and ghosts fighting over potential energy sources in the top secret frontier world between life and death is just a subplot to the main story about rebelling against the corporate overlords of a cyberpunk dystopia who've made all non-AI generated music so illegal that if the microchip in your neck catches you humming in the shower, a squad of drones will burst into your bathroom and murder you in your own home. But it gets even better than that, because the whole thing's written like it was supposed to be 25 episodes long, but then when they found out they were only getting 12, they just threw out half the scripts completely at random, so you'll tune into the new episode and all of a sudden Sari has got a new spirit on the squad that you've never even heard of before, and one of the major organizations that the entire plot revolves around is just completely fucking gone. It's like a train wreck to dumpster fire. I give it 4.5 Ice Cubes, Amazon Prime's, H.G. Wells's War of the Worlds. That is all the trash we've got for you tonight though, so it's time for you to find your way home, which you will unfortunately have to do on your own from now on. Turns out that returning concierge service users after we've already extracted payment from them is just a huge profit sink unless you're gonna charge a ransom for the return. So we're gonna be axing that service to maximize our shareholders' ROI. Lucky for you, we are back in the Canada alley for summer, so communication isn't gonna be an issue, and that's kinda walkable, but yeah, you're probably gonna wanna start those Japanese lessons sooner than later. Anyway, get the fuck out.